Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, Ba'ashim, Barakah Kudash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, the great millstone who rule and teach well, and peace and salutations to Ya'akim out there pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the Brother Raya with another video, and I'll be reading from an article on the economiccollapseblog.com titled, North America's bird population is collapsing. Nearly 3 billion birds have been wiped out since 1970. And this is just another example of why we call you Edomites, or so-called white people, the son of perdition, or the son of utter destruction. Because ever since you came into your final rulership, beginning with the Renaissance, the whole earth has languished under your rulership. There are chemtrails in the sky, pollution in the ocean, causing sea life such as whales to beach themselves because they can't handle it. Insect and animal populations facing extinction level events. GMO foods giving people cancer. Cell phone radiation giving people tumors and causing them to become infertile. The relationships between men and women to be degraded to such an extent that you're seeing an uptick in homosexuality, lesbianism, transgenderism, freakism in general, and there are people out there honestly contemplating having a relationship with rubber dolls. The list goes on. And if you Edomites were allowed to rule indefinitely, no flesh would be saved. The earth would be a desolate wasteland. This is Jeremiah 12 verse 4. How long shall the land mourn, and the herbs of every field wither, for the wickedness of them that dwell therein? As it says in Job 9 verse 24, the earth is given into the hands of the wicked, and you Edomites are the wicked, as pursuant to Malachi 1 verse 4, the border of wickedness. Wherever you Edomites dwell and set your borders, death, destruction, mayhem, perdition follows. The beasts are consumed, and the birds. 3 billion birds in North America have died since 1970 because they said, "He shall not see our last end." You Edomites are proud and think you're going to rule forever, that there is no Most High, and that if there is, He's on your side. But you Edomites are sadly mistaken. Your whole system is collapsing all around you, and Yahushai HaMashiach, whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, is about to make his return to save his elect and put the final nail in the coffin of your rulership. And after you Edomites are taken out of power, the only thing you have to look forward to is 1,000 years of hardcore bondage and slavery under the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans who are the true children of Israel, and then your permanent eradication afterwards. All around us, our world is literally in a state of collapse, but most people don't seem to care. I spend much of my time writing about the inevitable collapse of our economic and financial systems, but they are only one part of the story. These days, millions upon millions of us are spending countless hours in this virtual world that we have created, and that is preventing many of us from understanding what is really going on in the real world. Where I live, I can literally keep the doors wide open for hours without worrying about bugs coming in, because insect populations are disappearing at a pace that is frightening, all thanks to Esau Edom. You Edomites are the only people that can own all this destruction. You don't see Daquan, Jorge, or Abdul spraying pesticides on everything, putting chemtrails in the sky, or anything like that. They are calling it the insect apocalypse, and some scientists are warning that they could all be gone in 100 years. Unless the days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. And this dramatic decline in the insect population is one of the main reasons why North America's bird population is collapsing. In the old days, I remember the singing of birds often greeting me in the morning, but these days I am never awakened by birds. That makes sense if I lived right in the middle of a major city, but I don't. I live in a very rural location, and I do see birds out here, but not nearly as many as I would expect. Sadly, the scientific evidence is confirming that what many of us have feared. According to a scientific study that was just released, North America's bird population has fallen by nearly 3 billion birds since 1970. If you've noticed fewer birds in your backyard than you used to, you're not mistaken. North America has lost nearly 3 billion birds since 1970, a study said Thursday, which also found significant population declines among hundreds of bird species, including those once considered plentiful. On second thought, I don't know if the term collapse is strong enough to describe what we are facing. In 1970, there were about 10 billion birds in North America. Now there are about 7 billion. When are we finally going to admit that we have had a major crisis on our hands? Hopefully, it will be before the count gets to zero. Overall, we are talking about a total decline of approximately 30%. We saw this tremendous net loss across the entire bird community, said Ken Rosenberg, an applied conservation scientist at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology in Ithaca, New York, Slovakia. By our estimates, it's a 30% loss in the total number of breeding birds. Could humanity survive without birds? Probably, but probably not, because the whole entire ecosystem works perfectly in tandem with each other. If you take one cog out of the machine, the whole thing falls apart. Matthew 24, verse 22. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. And as I said at the beginning of the video, if Esau Edom were allowed to rule indefinitely, this whole earth would be turned into a desolate wasteland. Esau Edom is a madman who thinks he can do better than the Most High, that he is the Most High. As pursuant to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4, Esau Edom thinks he's improving upon the Most High's design with his technology, but it's having the exact opposite effect. Cell phone radiation and pesticide use is leading to a decrease in the insect population. A decrease in the insect population is leaving less of a food source for the bird population, which leads to a decrease in the bird population, etc., etc. The whole ecosystem works in tandem, and when you take one cog out of the machine, the whole thing falls apart. And birds just don't exist to look pretty. They have a major impact on the ecosystem and man's relationship to the ecosystem. This is an article from birdlife.org titled, "Why We Need Birds Far More Than They Need Us." Can you imagine a world without birds? The benefits birds bring us aren't just cultural. Birds play an essential role in the functioning of the world's ecosystems in a way that directly impacts human health, economy, and food production, as well as millions of other species. Here's how. Birds control pests. It might be a little extreme to say that we'd be wading knee-deep in invertebrates if birds disappeared, but maybe not that extreme. A recent study has shown that birds eat 400 to 500 million tons of insects a year. In China, 2/3 of the diet of house swift Apis napoleonensis consists of agricultural pests, and in forests across the Americas, evening grosbeak Hesperophona vespertina becomes a superhero during outbreaks of spruce budworm, providing biological control worth $1,820 per square kilometer. And from that information we've been reading from that article, 3 billion birds have died off in North America since the 1970s, and best believe that's going to have an impact on future outbreaks of the spruce budworm and its detrimental effects on the environment and people's livelihoods. This is an article from sprucebudwormmaine.org. What happens during a spruce budworm epidemic? Caterpillars and moths become abundant. Caterpillars eat conifer needles. Feeding by the caterpillars leads to tree damage and death. Damage includes defoliation, top kill after several years of heavy feeding, tree mortality, and trees are very vital to the earth after about 5 years of heavy feeding. Weakened trees not killed by budworm are more vulnerable to other insects, bark beetles and wood borers, and diseases. root rots. This can cause additional loss of wood and tree mortality. Direct impacts to trees and forests are most severe in northern and down east Maine. In North America, makeup of the forest is changed, types and ages of trees in the forest. Wildlife is affected, some benefit, some lose. Forest economy impacted, loss of mature timber, less wood produced, more wood available for the market, lower prices, job loss. What can I expect outside the area where budworm feeding kills and damages trees? Recreational impacts, tourism impacts, job impacts, market impacts, moth impacts, an effect on the environment and men's livelihoods. It's all a vicious cycle. Birds are so efficient that nest boxes have become a pest control practice throughout Europe. Birds pollinating plants. When we think pollinators, bees and butterflies flutter to mind, but bird pollinators such as hummingbirds and the honey eater also make a big contribution, especially in high altitudes or hot climates. In South Africa, for instance, nearly a quarter of salvia species are bird pollinated. Such flowers are lacking in scent, since birds favor sight over smell. Their role as pollinators benefit us directly. Around 5% of the plants humans use for food or medicine are pollinated by birds, and when they disappear, the results can be drastic. 31 species of Hawaiian bellflowers appear to have gone extinct, along with the birds that pollinated them. And except those days should be shortened, and the rulership of Esau Edom be shortened, no flesh shall be saved. Birds are nature's cleanup crew. The sight of vultures circling overhead may look foreboding, but it is both their speed of arrival, typically within an hour of death, and their thoroughness, which makes them so valuable. It could be days before other less efficient scavengers, such as feral dogs or rats, arrive to pick at the remains, allowing deadly diseases such as rabies and tuberculosis to develop and spread. Over its lifetime, a single vulture provides waste disposal services worth around $11,600. Following the collapse of Asia's vultures, India's feral dog population surged by 5.5 million, spreading rabies and leading to an estimated 47,300 human deaths. Number 4, birds spread seeds. When birds travel, they take the seeds they have eaten with them and disperse them through their droppings. They bring plants back to ecosystems that have been destroyed, and even carry plants across the sea to new land masses. Birds have helped to shape the plant life we see around us and around the world. In New Zealand's forests, 70% of the plants have seeds dispersed by birds such as tui, Prosthemdera, Nova Zelandii, and even greater duty is borne by Micronesian imperial pigeon Dacula oceanica as one of the largest birds in the Palau archipelago. It is one of the main seed dispersers across the entire island chain. Birds transform entire landscapes. Habitats like forests, marshes, and grasslands affect people across the whole planet, even those living hundreds of miles away. They store carbon, keep the climate stable, oxygenate the air, and transform pollutants into nutrients. But without birds, many of these ecosystems may not exist. Birds maintain the delicate balance between plant and herbivore, predator and prey. A perfect example is the salt marshes of southeastern USA, where cross-grove cordgrass thrives, filtering local water and protecting the coast from sea erosion. The salt marsh periwinkle, Littorae irritata, grazes upon cord grass with gusto, and were it not for predators such as oyster catchers, curlews, and plovers, these tiny snails would devour the entire marsh, leaving only mudflats. So when you don't have birds, you have ecological collapses. Birds keep coral reefs alive. Birds, especially seabirds, play a key role in cycling nutrients and helping to fertilize marine ecosystems such as coral reefs. Seabirds travel hundreds of kilometers to feed out in the ocean, and when they return, they deposit layers of highly pungent guano, seabird droppings, at their colonies. This guano leaches into the ocean and fertilizes nearby communities such as coral reefs. A study on the Chagos Islands shows what happens when this process is disrupted. On islands free of invasive seabird predators, coral reefs thrived, with fish growing larger and faster for their age compared to rat-infested islands. And you Edomites are also destroying coral reefs. In Hawaii, they're having to pass bills to fine people for using a sunscreen lotion because it's destroying the coral reefs. And we know it's you Edomites that use sunscreen because you can't go into the sun without being burned. Everywhere you go, all you bring is death and destruction. But this year is yet another sign that the planetary food chain is in the process of totally breaking down. Despite all of our advanced technology, we are not going to survive without an environment that supports life. And at this moment, that environment is being destroyed at a staggering pace. According to the lead author of the study, the evidence they compiled showed pervasive losses among common birds across all habitats, including backyard birds. Multiple independent lines of evidence show a massive reduction in the abundance of birds, said study lead author Ken Rosenberg, a senior scientist at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and American Bird Conservancy, in a statement. We expected to see continuing declines of threatened species, but for the first time, the results also showed pervasive losses among common birds across all habitats, including backyard birds. I like having birds in my backyard. In fact, I wish that I had a whole lot more. Two of the largest factors being blamed for this stunning decline are toxic pesticides and insect decline. We have already talked about the insect apocalypse, which is raging all around us, but I should say a few words about pesticides. Yes, they may help to protect our crops and our lawns, but in the process, we are literally poisoning everything. And that includes ourselves. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, there are traces of 29 different pesticides in the average American's body, and many believe that this is one of the reasons why cancer rates have skyrocketed in recent decades. Without a doubt, several of the big pesticide companies are some of the most evil corporations on the entire planet. And who runs these companies? Edomites, so-called white people, the sons of perdition. And yet most Americans don't really seem to care about the death and destruction that they have unleashed all around us. As with so many other things, this is yet another example that shows that we have no future on the path that we are currently on, and the clock is ticking again, and except those days should be shortened, no flesh shall be saved. So as you sincere Akim can see, this is just another example of why Esau Edom needs to be taken out of power as soon as possible. And Esau Edom's judgment is quickly coming upon him. These are very beautiful times we're living in, and the whole earth is going to rejoice when you Edomites are finally taken out of power. This is Isaiah chapter 14. I'm going to read verse 5 through 7. Yahweh hath broken the staff of the wicked. You Edomites, the border of wickedness in Malachi 1 and 4, whom the earth has been given into the hands of in Job 9 and 24, and the scepter of the rulers, he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, chemtrails, cell phone radiation, GMO foods, wars to steal people's resources, dropping atomic bombs on people, destroying the insect and bird population. The list goes on and on. He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, and none hindereth. Nobody's going to miss you Edomites getting taken out of power during that first 1,000 years of hardcore bondage and slavery. Besides the Israelites putting that foot in your ass, these heathens, in between getting their ass beat by us, are going to find time to beat your ass as well. Verse 7, the whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Not just these heathen nations, but the environment, the seas, the lands, and the air. This is Psalm chapter 96. I'm going to read verse 10 through 12. Say among the heathen that Yahweh reigneth, which is what the men of the Lord, chiefly through GMS or Great Millstone, are doing right now, going out there on the highways and byways preaching this word, and diligently putting up videos like this on the internet. The world also shall be established, that it shall not be moved. He shall judge the people righteously. Yahweh at the top, his son Yahushai, whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, underneath, then King David, then the 12 apostles, then the rest of the 144,000, then the rest of the righteous 1/3, and then the 2/3 of Israel under them, who will be righteous once they're reborn in the kingdom. We're going to rule this planet under the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai. Let the heavens rejoice, the skies, which will no longer have chemtrails, and let the earth be glad. Back in Isaiah 14, the whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing, because the staff of the wicked has been broken. You Edomites have been taken out of power. Let the sea roar, and the fullness thereof. No more pollution or plastics filling up the oceans, causing marine life such as whales to beach themselves. Let the field be joyful, and all that is therein. No more pesticides or other harmful chemicals killing off insects, plants, or animals. No more animals getting hunted to damn near extinction just so their body parts can be sold off as luxury goods. Then shall all the trees of the wood rejoice. These lands are no longer going to be getting strip mined for their resources. You Edomites are known for going buck wild and cutting down trees like madmen. Look at that show Axemen, for example. I'm going to close it off in Revelation chapter 11, verse 18. And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great. When the kingdom is established, that first 1,000 years, when these heathens are going to be under our feet, and the earth's going to be returning to its former estate. And after that first 1,000 years, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth, you Edomites getting permanently eradicated from the face of the earth, and good riddance. So with this video, I hope you sincere Akim are edified. If you have the eyes to see, you can clearly see that these end times prophecies are beginning to come to their fulfillment. So now's not the time to be getting weak in the faith. You should be fully assured in your faith in Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai, and pushing this word as hard as you can to make your calling and election sure, and be saved from these coming terrible calamities of Jacob's trouble. So as always, I'm going to say Abba Babal, Kwam Yasharala. Till next time, Shalom.